Hello there. I've said this before that politics is theatre, and indeed I think it is, but I'm not the first person to have come up with this thought. You can see on the screen there's a few different quotes from various people who have a similar take on the reality of what politics is. Um, it's kind of interesting to me that there was a severe malaise, at least in British and American politics post the Iraq War. There's a famous, iconic picture of the British leader Tony Blair um, taking a selfie at an on fire oil field, and it was a perfect example of not being able to read the room, of being tone deaf, as is the modern parlance. And similarly, you've got people like George W. Bush. It's ironic because they were on opposite sides of the spectrum, but they ended up working together in this coalition of the willing, so to speak. And yeah, it just shows you that actually it doesn't really make any difference. You can vote for the far left, and if they get in, all like the communists and extreme socialists, they'll be like, "Yay, we're great! Our guy's in. It's brilliant." And they're in for a while, they get kicked out, and then the opposite happens. The people on the right, vote in their guy, like Trump. The far right through to the centre are like, yay, our guy's in. So you've got this small area now in the middle, which seems to be the centrists, and the far left and the far right have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. But at that particular time I mentioned, people would just become very suspicious of politics and politicians in general, and the fact that they just don't care. They really don't give a fiddler's F about any of us. I think that had become quite common knowledge. People really acknowledge that. And the political establishment, they responded by trying to engineer political division and sort of a divergence of the centre into like more and more extremes, and using social media and the news and all kinds of probably print media as well, etc., films, TV series, etc. They've actually managed to do it. They've succeeded in driving the centre apart and creating these two political extremes of right and left, to the point that the left and the right are no longer able to talk to each other, and sort of mudslinging. Basically that's what goes on between the left and the right now. No rational argument, just accusations. And if something's reported on CNN, all the left people believe it all. And if something's reported on Fox News, all the right people just believe it all. There's no real critical thinking going on anymore. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on with these people? They've just been captured. They've been captured and they don't think. It's like being in a cult. If you're on the far left or on the far right, you might as well be in the Moonies or the Scientologists or something, because it's the same kind of closed echo chamber that you're in if you're part of that group. And, I think theatre has always been a big part of politics, but more so recently. And a few things come to my mind. It's sort of like the Wizard of Oz, where you've got like this projection of the wizard, and I remember Dorothy and her friends are all like terrified, and then Toto pulls back the curtain. There's this man behind pulling the levers, and that's how politics is. There's the projection out the front, which is the likes of Trump and Obama and all these people, Tony Blair, etc. Charismatic people. Who's that guy? Nigel Farage in the UK. Like him or love him, he's got a bit of charisma and personality. I suppose Boris Johnson, that buffoon, had a bit of personality as well. So really, to get people's attention, you don't have to be any good. In the case of Obama, he was a fantastic orator, but he didn't really seem to get very much achieved, despite or his great amazing rhetoric. Um, so really, you've just got this needle that swings backwards and forwards to create this illusion of democracy. But the reality is, no matter whether the machine keeps going, right? Whether you put a red sticker on it or a blue sticker on it, the machine just trundles along as usual. And it's all about the theatrics, creating the illusion of democracy that you voted, you did something. But I quite often liken it to this guy, Elvis Presley, right? He was a very charismatic musician with a wide appeal. He came from the gutter. He lived in a sort of a really poor, mostly black area of the States. So he had like appeal to both white people and black people. He had a huge interest in all kinds of music, including blues and gospel music, and he brought that very much to the masses. And then later in his career, um, he ended up doing a long residency over several years in a Las Vegas casino, which seemed to be very much run by Italian mobsters. So, I often think it's like that, right? So, Trump and Obama or whoever else, they're basically, the political equivalent of Elvis. This charismatic guy who goes out and does the performance in front of the world, and people are captivated, just like they were captivated watching Elvis in his stupid white jumpsuits. But he was actually a great performer. He was a really amazing singer. He actually could play the piano and the guitar pretty well as well. And he did contribute a lot to the songwriting. So he actually was very talented. But the point being is, like, the job of Trump and the job of Obama and all these other, charismatic politicians is to get people watching, to keep the attention, right? So you don't notice what's going on behind. Elvis's job was to get people into the casino. I mean, probably it cost them more money, because they didn't have a huge auditorium. It was big, right? You get a lot of people in there, maybe 1,000 people, but they had to pay millions to do that, to be there and do all these shows throughout the year. So, I mean, with the number of seats being quite restricted, did they even get their money back? But not from Elvis. But what Elvis did is he got people in the door. And of course, you pay for your hotel, you go and you put money into the casino tables, which means generally on average 35% of what you put onto the table will be taken by the casino, so they make money. But you also have to remember casinos are a huge front for organized crime. So if you've got dirty money from the sale of drugs or the sale of weapons or from human trafficking or whatever nefarious evil activity it is, you just bring your money to the casino and they clean it for you. They launderize your dirty money and it comes out the other side clean money. So, to a large extent, casinos were about, tax write-offs and money laundering as much as they were about fleecing the general public. And they employed Elvis as just like this, you know, showman at the front of the casino to lure people in to come and watch him, but basically to come in and gamble and waste all their money. And politics is exactly like that, really. There's all these gangsters at the back who you don't see and you don't know what they're doing. You're focused on Elvis at the front, and he does a big show, and he does, singing Suspicious Minds and all that with his stupid cape, and he's swinging his arms around, and everybody's loving it. But really, there's all this really horrible, nasty stuff going on in the background. But you're so distracted by Elvis that you don't even think about, the Las Vegas casino and what it's really there for. And it's just like that with politics. Okay, obviously Elvis had a very universal appeal, and with the case of say Trump or Obama, Joe Biden, or the same with W. Bush, it's quite polarizing. So it's not a universal attraction there, but your side, the red side, will love Trump and think he's great. The blue side will think Obama was great, maybe not so much Joe Biden, who was a bit of a basket case, but still people tended to, they went for him anyway because he was on their team. So, but anyway, the more charismatic the leader, the more likely you are to get the big vote and the bigger distraction it is. So people obsess about Donald Trump. People were obsessing about Obama, and again with George W. Bush. And then there'll be another big charismatic leader in the future, and everyone will be like watching them. But you know, the political machine and all the corruption that goes along with it just trundles along and trundles along, and you know, who sets the agenda? Do you really think it's Trump? Do you really think it was Obama? These people are just frontmen. They're frontmen. They're just like the political equivalent of Elvis Presley. They really don't have that much power, and they're just there to distract you into believing that you are taking part in a democracy when the reality is we've been living in fascism for this whole century pretty much. And we don't really have any say. It's all the corporates, the corporate power, all the lobbyists, and the people that they're lobbying for. They have all the power. They have all the power. And if you look at the legislation that gets passed, it's all these new laws and rules that are put in over the last 100 years. Where did it all come from? Do you think it came from members of the public like you and me? You must be joking. Of course it didn't. They can't allow that. They don't want real democracy. They just want an illusion of democracy, and they want you to believe it and think that if you vote for this guy or that guy or this woman or that woman, that you're actually going to make a difference. I tell you what will actually make a difference is if we bring to an end this stupid theatrical nonsense. There is no such thing as real politics. There's only theatre. And until that ends and the system is changed completely, we won't actually have any control over our own lives, in my opinion. And politics as theatre needs to end. Maybe one day there will be a real politic where we actually have some actual say in our future without having to like burn down a town hall and have a revolution. It seems like the only time they actually really listen to the real public is when there's a threat of insurrection. The rest of the time it's just bread and circuses and more theatre for us while they quietly do whatever they want in the background while we're all busy watching the front man, front woman who's distracting everyone. So I mean that's the sad state of politics today, I think, and so many people are fooled into thinking that if they support this side or that side that they're actually going to achieve something, that it makes any bloody difference at all. Well, I'm here to tell you that it makes no sodding difference who you vote for. The game is rigged, just like a rigged casino roulette wheel. It's bloody rigged from the very start. So forget about it. It's a pointless exercise, and I would suggest we should be trying to get the political system to be completely reformed and dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up. Voting for X or Y is not going to change a single thing. And I think the more people wake up and realise that, then we might have some hope of actually having a say in our future. Okay, that's enough for today. That's my rant over. If you like what I had to say, please like the video, please subscribe, and I'd love to see a few comments of what people think about this, whether they agree, or even if you disagree. I'd love to know why you think I'm wrong. So please leave a comment, and that's it for today. Okay, bye for now.